Linda Lela, and this is Morning Cafe. The hashtag is Morning Cafe at Linda_Lela, TV47KE. Join us as we get to decipher what is happening in the political scene as we await this moment where the Supreme Court then will tell us what way BBI, it's one ruling that many have waited for, whether it upholds what was there at the High Court as well as the Appellate Court, we also get to know where the Apex Court will go handy in supporting that as well. We also get to see whether it will take a different direction and what would it mean for the next election, that is 2022. How will this conversation alter? Whichever way they say, there has to be some ramifications, or there has to be some, alteration, or somehow we'll have to get, some difference that it will bring into the processes of preparing for the election. So we are keen to see what plays out today. Remember, the ruling begins at 9 a.m. and so we'll be streaming the same right here on TV47. And it is good as well to take a look at what is happening as pertaining to the plans of 2022. Different figures continue to prepare themselves, flex their muscles in preparation of taking any more post of leadership that is in the country, and so are the people keenly looking at what is being presented to them, just so they would be able to make a decision. So we'll be looking at that later on. We'll be engaging on matters fashion, and we have a conversation with one of the ladies right here in the country who's doing so well in terms of matters fashion. But it's even interesting because she takes this to a level of pushing for humanitarian activities, and so her philanthropy aspect is one of the conversations that we'll be having, speaking of the girl child and how well they need to be empowered as well. If we are lucky enough to get time before the ruling begins, then we'll hit the gym. But as of now, let's first of all take a look at the papers, and then I'll be looping in the guests that we have this morning: Alex Mwathi, Barack Muluka, and the Secretary General of ANC, that is Simon. Will be getting to have this gentleman for this conversation that is in about 20-30 minutes there. So it's time for us to look at the papers: the Daily Nation, the People Daily, and the Standard newspaper. And then later on, we'll be looking at what my team has prepared in terms of news. The Standard newspaper this morning, let's see what it speaks of. And yes, it's about the BBI, how the verdict will shape the August 9 polls. Eyes on the Supreme Court, and 7 judges hold fate of Building Bridges initiative in their hands. If they bring it back, or if they bring back reggae, this will energize Azimio presidential campaign. And if they uphold the Court of Appeal verdict and Kenya Kwanza earns bragging rights, then this is a story that has been captured on page 6 and 7. So this is what we'll be looking at, and I know there's nothing much we can speak of it. We can only wait to see what these judges have to say about the document. One of the key things that will be looked at is whether the BBI process was legal, and if the 2010 constitution can be amended or immutable. Or another thing that will be looked at is whether the president's participation rendered review push illegal, and if he enjoys immunity from prosecution, and also if IBC had quorum when it approved a BBI bill and signatures before submitting bill to county assembly. And lastly, whether court has power to intervene in a referendum when IBC has already verified voters' signatures. So we'll be looking at all these. Eyes on these judges: Chief Justice Martha Koome, Justice William Ouko, Justice Joaquin Ndungu, Justice Isaac Lenaola, as well as Justice Philomena Mwilu, who's the Deputy CJ, Justice Ibrahim Mohammed, and Justice Smokin Wanjala. Historical moment for the country, and we'll be here to make sure that this is disseminated to you. And away from it, a couple of other things on matters politics playing out in the country, and so we'll be looking at all that and many other things. A court battle looms after new SIM card order, and we've also been hearing at this particular point where you're making phone calls and you're told your SIM card is not registered, and therefore you have to proceed and speak to the service provider just to get to know whether you are on the right track or not. And so this is one of the things that, yes, was bound to be countered, because there are very many people who've argued that they had already registered their SIM cards, but this is not the case. And so most students is applying for technical courses and on the aspect of skills and so much more that is also playing out on this particular paper. So we're looking at this conversation that is as when we continue with the broadcast. And well, this also is a story that has been captured on page 14 and also on this one on matters education, where skills passport plan open doors for workers. Away from it, the front page, we also have this one about schools and scramble for Form 1 slots, a story captured on the front page, expounded on page 10 and 11. Celebrations over KCPE results are dying down as parents and candidates worry about Form 1 places. This as the government has confirmed and affirmed to the students that they need not to worry, because there's not a student who will miss out a slot or will miss a slot, you know, moving on. So we all hope that indeed our students are placed in places where they would be able to further their studies in a good and comfortable way. So here we are, UN alarmed by violence in DR Congo. There's a story captured on page 34 in the World Beat. This is quite unfortunate, coming at a time when DR Congo has officially joined the East African community, with alations, celebrations as to this move that is looked at as a move that would be very instrumental in growing this nation, and as well the East African integration and making, you know, the countries even better based on the arrangements they would have and, you know, based on the businesses that would be conducted and how different this would be. But if there is violence, then evidently this would not play out. But what informs this violence, and I mean, many would argue that it has been the case for quite a while, is just that the world has been silent to it. So we hope that such can be addressed as we continue. And those are the key stories that have been captured on the Standard newspaper. We briefly look at what the Daily Nation has in store. This is one of the stories that has made the better part of this week and last week. Raila aid our secret deal with Ruto to oust Uhuru, and the uppercut, so is to say, well, there have been allegations, or the president at some point in time has spoken to people from the mountain, telling them that one of the reasons why there was this fallout or evident fallout between him and the deputy is because of these plans that the deputy had to ouster him. As slowly as it comes out, well, many have argued, or at least, you know, the deputy president's quarter have said that, well, this was orchestrated by the likes of Right Honorable Raila Odinga or in conjunction with them. At some point, Raila Odinga saying that, well, he cannot speak much about that. But then again, the likes of Junaid Mohammed are here to speak volumes and probably just, you know, unravel what really played out. So this we continue to speak about, and we see of what importance it is right now, or whether in a huge way, again, it would change the matrix of politics in the country, as captured on page 12 and 13. And so we'll be getting the views of the pundits that we have this morning. It is the biggest story on the Daily Nation, and actually the story that finds itself on the front page, and so that we'll be looking at later on as we continue, well, alongside other stories that have been captured in this particular paper. Still continue to celebrate matters education, as is on page 2, 3, as we continue to say congratulations to the students who made us proud by sitting for the KCPE 2021 exams. And the People Daily: couple nabbed at a border over toddlers killing. Phyllis Jerry and husband Jackson Goe, who have been on the run, are accused of torturing and killing 3-year-old David Dungu as his elder brother watched in Nairobi. This is heartbreaking, a story captured on page 6. We all hope that then justice would be met. BBI litmus test for Supreme judges. Well, D-Day for the handshake. The 7-judge bench led by Chief Justice Martha Koome will make what could arguably be the most significant ruling by Kenyan courts since the nullification of President Kenyatta's election victory in 2017, captured on page 4 and 5. We are keen to see what the judges then will rule as pertaining to that. Jubilation as Senegal, Cameroon and Ghana head to World Cup, and Morocco and Tunisia also book places in the finals of a frantic night. Congratulations to them, as captured on page 32 of the People Daily. So CS issues Form 1 at selection criteria, a story captured on page 7, and still would want to tell the students to go by that word that comes from the Ministry of Education, that no student will lack a slot that is in high school. So in as much as there is the worry and jitters, there is no cause for alarm, because then the government is keen to make sure that there's 100% transition on the roads. Just by looking at a glance, there's really no cause for alarm this morning. Starting from Limuru Road, this is where we find ourselves. Limuru Road is quite smooth this morning, all the way to Gigiri Police Station and down as well. And so we also take a look at all this to see whether there's anything that would cause us worry as we continue. Let's see on this particular bit whether there is any space that would be worrying this morning in terms of traffic. And so let's see, we are somewhere around Garam. There's not much of traffic that would probably push for us to maybe look deep down to this side of Gikomba. Some tenets of traffic somewhere around Landis Road, and Jogo Road on this other side is quite a heavy, one would say, but it is moving, as you can see. Some, along Jogo Road, it doesn't look so beautiful this morning. You see all the reddish bits this morning on Jogo Road. So if you're taking Jogo Road, you know that you are likely to stay longer on the road. And down to Outer Ring Road, let's see what Outer Ring looks like. Outer Ring is not looking so bad, though there are some pockets where you find some bit of traffic somewhere around Buruburu. Let's go up to Thika Road and see whether there's cause for alarm. Somehow connected to Juja Road, not so bad on Juja Road, but yes, pockets of traffic, as you can see right there. And down on all the way to around Thika Road, this is Thika Road. There's really no worry. Garden City, from Garden City, which in most cases is notorious with traffic, as you can see down from Kasarani, it is not worrying this morning on Thika Road. So it's quite a smooth ease as you find your way to, say, town, or where it is that you're headed. Around De La Rue, there is where you'll find some pockets of traffic, but it's not looking so bad. And going all the way down to Pangani Place, somewhere here, you will always find so much of traffic because of the aspect of vehicles coming from different roads and getting into the city. But it is not so ugly this morning. It's a Thursday, so most of the times Thursdays do not really cause much of alarm in terms of traffic. Around Pangani Police Station, not looking bad, and all the way down to these other sides of Wayaki Way, somewhere around Kempinski, the roads are looking good. Parklands on this other side as well is pretty smooth, so no cause for alarm. ABC Place down there as you connect to James Gishuru, that is on Wayaki Way, is quite smooth, and James Gishuru down to Lavington Mall, it's not looking so bad, and down to this other side where you connect to Gitanga Road as well, not looking bad, and all the way down to the Junction Mall, it is not looking bad. That is Ngong Road, is not so bad this morning on this side of Adams Arcade. Some pockets of traffic or tenets of traffic, some bit sports or some sports, but it is not so bad. So down to Lusaka Road, we said it's a bit of traffic, but not looking so ugly. And I guess really this morning we don't need to worry. The Southern Bypass is as clean as it is most of the times. Uhuru Gardens on this other side, and down to Langata Road, roadworks ongoing as they connect to Mbagathi Way, but it is not looking so bad. These are the roadworks, but yes, there's no cause for alarm, as you can tell right there. And on this side, let's see whether there's other places where we'd want to look, and probably just let us know so that we are not stuck in traffic. Enterprise Road is not looking bad. That could be an alternative to get to town. Maybe if you're using Mombasa Road and you're worried that you could be stuck in traffic somewhere around Imara Daima, some bit of traffic. It can be quite heavy right before you get to Cabanas, as you can see right here on Mombasa Road. That's pretty much heavy down there. But on this other side, going all the way to the Nyayo Stadium, it is not worrying. So I'll be here to make sure that you are updated if there's anything that is happening on our roads this morning as well. We are open to hear from you. The hashtag again is Morning Cafe at Linda_Lela TV47KA. Now let's take a look at this conversation. The Supreme Court is today expected to issue its verdict on the Building Bridges initiative. And as Joash Onsari reports, the judgment may make or break some political careers and is expected to have a huge impact on the political landscape in the country.
The 7-judge bench of the Supreme Court is now set to issue a judgment on the BBI appeal on Thursday.
The judge under the Constitution 2010 is a lion or lioness. Go ye forth and roar. Roar. Let every corner of this country hear the roar from this court.
The 7 judges, led by Chief Justice Martha Koome, her deputy Philomena Mwilu, Justices Isaac Lenaola, William Ouko, Njoki Ndongo, Smokin Wanjala and Mohamed Ibrahim are expected to explain the basic structure doctrine to determine whether the Constitution is subject to an implied limitation on the power of amendment of any of its provisions. On the bill, the Apex Court will be also required to give a judgment on Judiciary Ombudsman who shall be appointed by the President in the scenario where the BBI bill is okayed. Previously, the lawyers opposing the appeal by the proponents of the bill called on the Supreme Court judges to issue a decision that will quash the Constitution amendment process.
If any amendment or any proposed amendment is against the supremacy of the Constitution, the supremacy of the Almighty God, that amendment must be struck out.
Lawyers who represent President Kenyatta, Attorney General, and IEBC, who are the main appellants of the case, urged the Apex Court to quash the ruling of the lower courts, insisting the President had a right to initiate the popular initiative.
We appreciate that the Constitution is not cast in stone. Today we have a power. That power is well clarified.
Joash Onsare, TV 47, Nairobi.
The government is grappling with a huge number of pupils who applied to be placed in specific secondary schools in the Form 1 selection exercise currently underway. Education Cabinet Secretary Professor George Magoha says that this is a big challenge, bearing in mind the schools have limited spaces. However, the Education CS says they will use affirmative action to ensure the process is fair to all learners. Here is our senior education reporter Sharon Baranga with the story.
A day after the government released the 2021 KCPE results, a section of learners and their parents have jitters over the secondary schools that will be selected to join. They are concerned over missing out on the specific schools they are hoping to join. As a result, the Education CS has assured learners that they will use affirmative action to ensure there is fairness in the selection.
Every child is safe in Magoha's hands. But Kenya is a rainbow country, and we want to be sure that there's a child from Marsabit at Kenya High School, there's a child from Nyeri in Kenya High School, there's a child from Mombasa here in Kenya High School. That's why they are called national schools. And we do this without apology to anybody, because it is fair and just.
One of the challenges government officials are facing is the huge number of pupils who applied to be placed in specific schools that have a limited capacity.
That everybody will want to go to Alliance. Every Alliance has maybe 500 slots. Everybody will want to go to Kenya High with another 500 slots. Maybe another 500 for Pangani and what have you. And yet we have close to 12,000 children with over 400. So we have to ensure that there's affirmative action which takes into account the geographical distribution of this country. And just to tell you that children from the northern region must also be represented in all areas of national schools.
Private school owners have been urged to invest in the construction of more secondary schools to help ease the pressure mounted on public secondary schools.
They should not only look for the profit margin. Why they have refused to create secondary schools, none of you has asked me about that question. They only create private schools then these same private schools will now go to government institutions. If government institutions are poor in primary, how about secondary? So I want to encourage them to kindly, especially now that we are going to CBC, to create standalone junior secondary schools that will help us to reduce the pressure.
The 2021 primary school graduates will get to know the secondary schools they will be joining after 2 weeks. The process of Form 1 selection is already ongoing.
There are obnoxious application figures. You'll find for Pangani with 500, there are 145,000. How will you do it? You can't do it. I mean, our people don't think. And then what is worse, somebody will put Pangani, then put Kenya High School, then put another third one. So it's like he has lost all the opportunities. Because you are supposed to get a national school, an extra county school. But if you take all the top schools, by the time you are on the third one, then we put you where we think you can go. And then you will hear a lot of noise. But you see, it doesn't bother me because I'm not a politician. Even my relative will follow the same formula.
And there will be no people who will interfere with the president.
Look at me. Well, look at me. Look at me very well. Will you try?
Elsewhere at Maragall's Center in Narok County, it was a moment of celebration as the girls who were rescued from early marriages and female genital mutilation managed to score a mean grade of 393. And in Kitui County, learners from Success New Life Center celebrated their exemplary performance in KCPE. Out of 17 candidates, 15 scored 300 marks and above. Among the 17 pupils, 10 were school dropouts who were rehabilitated before they resumed learning. Sharon Baranga, TV 47.
South Member of Parliament Moses Kuria is accused of issuing sensational remarks about the 2017 election, in which he claimed the elections were rigged in favor of President Uhuru Kenyatta, will now proceed to a full hearing before the IEBC committee. IEBC Chairman Wafula Chebukati, in a ruling, said the matter is legally before the committee, dismissing preliminary objections raised by the defense team. And as Mike Agwongo reports, the controversial legislature has threatened to drag the Supreme Court into the case.
After being summoned by IEBC to appear before the committee's Code of Conduct, Gatundu South Member of Parliament Moses Kuria arrived at the Commission's headquarters at 10 a.m. Wednesday, ready for his case. Kuria was summoned by the Commission's Electoral Code of Conduct Enforcement Committee following remarks he made on March 15th, suggesting that the 2013 and 2017 general elections was rigged in favor of President Uhuru Kenyatta.
The committee is not bound, and this is important, is not bound by strict provisions of the Criminal Procedure Code, Cap 75.
Your statement casts aspersions on the integrity of the general election 2017, specifically that the voting system developed by the Commission is not secure and falls foul of the requirement of Article 86.
Through his lawyer Ntegwa Wahome, he cited the case where Muranga woman representative Samina Shege had a similar matter before IEBC but moved to court to challenge its jurisdiction. Wahome pointed out that the committee should down its tools until the matter before the court is fully heard and determined.
And therefore, that we have raised this question of jurisdiction and that it is an issue that is actively in court for decision on the jurisdiction of this committee. We only think that it is prudent that this committee downs its tools at this point until the court, High Court renders itself on the issue.
The law is very clear. Serve the respondent himself or another member of his family.
Is that it would send a message to someone who would be served by this commission on any matter, given that we are getting into petitions and all that they can expect that someone, even your shopkeeper, can be served on your behalf.
IEBC Chairman Wafula Chebukati, in a ruling, said the matter is legally before the committee, dismissing preliminary objections raised by the defense team.
The Electoral Code of Conduct Enforcement Committee thus has jurisdiction and is legally seized of the matter before it for hearing and determination. The committee therefore makes the following orders. 1, the preliminary objection raised by the counsel for the respondent on the 30th March 2022 is hereby dismissed, and this matter shall proceed to full hearing.
The lawmaker who objected to the full hearing, now scheduled for April 7, 2022, defended himself against accusation of wrongdoing following his vote rigging claims. Kuria is now threatening to drag the Supreme Court into the case after the electoral agency resolved to slot the matter for a full hearing.
I am not the one who impugned the 2017 general election. It is the Supreme Court. And actually, I intend to call the Supreme Court before as a witness, because until now, the orders to open the servers were never complied with. So before even, this I think is a wonderful opportunity to Kenyans. It's a wonderful opportunity for us to be able to audit so that we don't plunge this country into another crisis and another chaos. It's a wonderful, massive opportunity for us to be able to audit what happened after the Supreme Court ruling.
In a similar case that bounds Murang'a County Woman Representative Sabina Chege, Chebukati stated that the MP was wrong in her utterances, saying all persons bound by the Code of Conduct should reassure voters of impartiality of the commission and secrecy of the ballot. Through IEBC ICT boss Professor Abdi Guliye, the Electoral Commission blamed the courts for delaying its execution of justice on politicians who have claimed there was vote rigging and other irregularities in the 2017 general election.
According to the Commission's Code of Conduct that governs the elections, the court order gives an avenue for anyone who makes such utterances to have a room where they can run to and run away from the culpability of these offenses. Mike Kagwango, TV 47, IEBC headquarters at the Anniversary Towers, Nairobi.
Mike. Now, the Kenya Kwanza team for a second day running continue to popularize its agenda in the Ukambani region, addressing rallies in Kitui and Machakos counties. Deputy President William Ruto said the August polls will mark an end to political conmanship, further dismissing the Azimio la Umoja coalition, saying its leaders lack a clear agenda for the country, as Andrin Kilemi tells us.
Kura ya hasla iko wapi?
Wednesday, and the Kenya Kwanza team took its popularization campaigns to Machakos and Kitui counties, seeking to rally voters behind Deputy President William Ruto's bid to succeed President Uhuru Kenyatta.
Kwani huyo mtu ya kitendawili ni mtu mgeni? Sisi tunamjua. Kwani ni mtalii amekuja jana? Si tunamjua. Si ni ule amehangaisha Kalonzo? Si ni ule wa kukataa matokeo ya uchaguzi? Si ni ule wa kung'oa reli? Si ni ule wa kujiapisha? Si ni ule ana mpango wa titibi mtiala na ria?
Addressing roadside rallies in Ukambani, Ruto said the August polls will mark an end to political conmanship in Kenya, further urging voters to reject ODM leader Raila Odinga, while dismissing the Azimio la Umoja leaders as clueless, noting that they lack a clear agenda for the country.
Si amekuwa around miaka hii yote. Kuna chochote amepanga ya maendeleo? Sasa mnataka kuniambia hawa watu wanasukuma mtu ya kitendawili? Wanatuambia saa hii miaka yake ndio ile inafika karibu 80. Saa hii ndio ataanza kujua vile ya kupanga mambo ya maendeleo ya Kenya. Si kazi, mimi naona tu tumfanyie kazi moja. Tusaidiane na watu wa Kangundo. Huyo mzee tumuweke kwa wheelbarrow express mpaka Bondo. Ama
Ruto further faulted his competitor Raila Odinga, accusing him of deceiving Wiper leader Kalonzo Musyoka into signing an agreement with Azimio la Umoja coalition without a clear understanding of its content.
Sini watume kwa Kalonzo. Si mkimpata Kalonzo, mwambie awache kuhangaishwa na wale watu. Akuja aungane na hasla, tuunde serikali, tuende mbele pamoja.
Ruto said his competitors were only focused on changing the constitution to create positions for a few leaders, while Kenyans continue to grapple with high unemployment rates. The deputy president asked Kenyans to rally behind the Kenya Kwanza alliance, saying it was the only political formation with a people-centered agenda. Andrin Kilemi, TV 47.
Still on matters politics, Kirinyaga Governor Anne Waiguru has come out guns blazing defending her decision to join the UDA party to rally behind Deputy President William Ruto in his quest to succeed President Uhuru Kenyatta. Waiguru says no amount of intimidation will cow her from popularizing Ruto's bid to ascend to the presidency. The Kirinyaga boss claims government operatives have been threatening and intimidating her with trumped-up charges in a bid to make her leave the UDA party, as well as members of the county assembly vying on a UDA ticket. Waiguru has also reiterated her calls to President Uhuru Kenyatta to have a handshake between his deputy before leaving the office.
Mimi nimeambiwa, nimewekewa faili zangu. Tumesema sisi hata wakitutisha wafanye vile wanataka, sisi tunasimama upande wa wananchi na tunasimama na chama cha UDA, si ndio? Na wananchi wametuambia tukae hivyo na tusikakubali hata kusonga kamwe. Na tunataka kuambia watu au kukirinyaga vile tumesema hatutakubali kupangwa. Mtakubali kupangwa? Mtakubali kupangwa? Mtakubali kutishwa? Hao watu wa Kirinyaga wanajulikana. Sisi sio watu wa kutishwa na makelele ndogo ndogo ama makelele pia kubwa. Sisi tunaamini Mungu na tunajua Mungu atatusaidia. Mimi nasema hivi, mtu ambaye tunajua ambaye alijaribu kuangusha serikali ya Uhuru, tunamjua anaitwa nani? Si anaitwa Raila? Alijiapisha mchana, si ndio? Si tulimuona kwa TV na tukakuwa na picha na nchi yote na dunia yote iliona. Hizi maneno ambazo wanajaribu kuwekelea William Samoei Ruto, hawa watu hawatanunua hiyo maneno. Hawawezi kununua uongo. Alafu wawache level playing field, William Samoei ngangane na mzee wa Azimio, alafu asubuhi na mapema chama cha UDA na William Ruto wakuwa wameingia State House, si ndio? Tumekubaliana? Mtashikilia chama cha UDA? Mtashikilia William Samoei?
Members of the Kikuyu Council of Elders have denied reports that the alleged impeachment or attempts were put part of the agenda when they met President Uhuru Kenyatta at State House in Nairobi. Addressing the press Wednesday afternoon in Ruaka, Kiambu County, the elders, led by their patron, said that the president had nothing to do with what was said about Ruto's alleged impeachment plans. However, other leaders present criticized Ruto for being disrespectful to the president.
Kwa kifupi niseme kuna mambo ya mshangao kusikia, especially watu wa media mali ambao hata mukua umeletewa mambo ati kuna maneno president alisema mambo ati ya impeachment, na hakuna mtu alisema kitu kama hiyo. President hakusema. Mimi ndio nilikuwa MC wa hiyo function kuanzia mwanzo mpaka mwisho. Jambo lingine ni kusema ati president aliita wazee wa Kikuyu. Hapana. Sisi kama wazee, mimi kama patron ndio tulimuomba chairman kikao ambaye ndio mzee mwenzetu Rais Uhuru Kenyatta, tukae na yeye.
Na hii mambo ya matusi kutoka kwa Ruto na timu yake ni jambo ambalo tunataka kusema limefika kikomo yake. Na kama Wakenya ambao wako na fikira timamu hawaoni ile hasara ambayo matusi ya aina hiyo inaweza ikatuletea sisi wote kama Kenya, basi kuna shida. Na sisi tumekaa hapa leo kusema ya kwamba Ruto na timu yako ya UDA, matusi yenu ilianza mapema mlipoita vijana wetu hustlers, na mkaona ile itawasaidia ni wheelbarrow. Mmeona hayo matusi haitoshi, sasa mumeenda kumtukana hata mama mzazi wetu.
Thousands of Nairobi residents risk losing their homes following an eviction notice issued by the Nairobi Metropolitan Services. According to the documents tabled at the Senate Devolution Committee, almost all Nairobi informal settlements have been earmarked for demolitions, having encroached on private or public land, as NMS Director General Mohammed Badi distanced himself from previous demolitions. Elizabeth Mutuko with that report.
It was a date for the NMS boss, Major Retired Mohammed Badi, to appear before the Senate Devolution Committee to shed light on the 2021 July evictions, which saw hundreds of Nairobi residents spend their night in the cold. However, the NMS boss distanced himself from the matter, as he told the committee it was a different entity that carried out the evictions, but the MPs would hear none of it.
So these deliberations were discussed in the Nairobi Security Committee, and through a multi-agency operation, they decided to remove the individuals that have encroached that parcel of land.
The National Police Service did not take part or effect any evictions order. And you know, you're a general, a military man. This is also another disciplined officer. There must be one version of the truth. There can't be a General Badi version and a Mutiambai version. These must be harmonized.
General Badi had a hard time to convince the committee members that NMS was not part of the task force that carried out evictions that are mostly illegal.
Give notice as per the minutes that you have just produced. Neither were your officers on the ground to do the eviction, but the situation on the ground, yani the way you say maneno kwa ground, is different. Because when we went there, we found the enforcement officers and admitted that they were part and parcel of the eviction team, which was comprised of the police and the officers, and it was done in unprofessional manner in the wee hours of the night.
Problem is that Pumwani maternity has 2 parcels of land that have been taken over by grabbers. The doctors' quarters and the nurses' quarters to the left and to the right. What this committee is trying to do as an oversight committee is to get them back to the public, because this is public property.
Now, when this task was brought to NMS, since we do not have those powers to evict people, we refer the case to the Regional Security Committee to deliberate.
He further told the committee among the areas targeted for demolitions in Lang'ata sub-county include illegal structures encroaching Transmara printers at Edrom Road, Nairobi West, and upcoming slums dwellings at the Olesreni area along Mombasa Road. In Embakasi sub-county, illegal structures along Premier Wall of the East African School of Aviation within Embakasi, illegal structures at Karisag Land Manyencha Road within Umoja, structures along Kenya Builders and Concrete Company Limited perimeter wall, and surrounding areas of quarry and pipeline are also targeted.
In 90s, some are in 2000, and it's very sad that Kenyans get defrauded by the same commission or council that was then allocating or double allocating or triple allocating.
I want to make a request. There's a long list of pending evictions. Many of them need to be done. You know, if we're being real, a politician would generally say don't do any of them, but they will need to be done in many respects. I just want to ask, and through you, Chair, whether it is NMS or this regional committee of security, that before any other eviction is done, can we just agree on the established protocols that are going to be followed?
Mathare sub-county, illegal containers placed at Huruma Playground are also expected to be removed in the area. Report says is the only remaining place that can hold national or major functions. Elizabeth Mutuko, TV47 Nairobi.
All right, and it's at this point that we now shift gears to the conversation. Remember, the lines are open for you to be part of it. The hashtag is Morning Cafe at Linda_Lela TV47KE across all our social media platforms. We sample some of your comments as we continue with the broadcast. It's very, very important that you are part of this. Remember, we talk politics as well as other matters that are of importance. We take a look at what the papers detail this morning, and that's exactly what we'll be doing alongside communications advisor and as well strategist, Dr. Barak Muluka, that is on my farthest left. Thank you so much for creating time, sir. As well as Engineer Alex Mwathi. It's an honor to have you after a very long time, governance expert. Thank you so much for creating time.
Thank you.
How have you been?
It's a pleasure to be here this morning.
It's good to have you.
It's a wonderful day that the Lord has made that we can rejoice and be glad.
That's true. You've been well? It's long since
well.
you were here.
Very well. Still happy.
As
Every
always.
single day is a blessing.
Still writing as well?
You're still writing, yeah. And I'm getting more concerned about a country that is facing hunger. Children are dying.
That's true.
And the entire leadership does not find time to comment about it.
That's true.
Allow me to use this word. The overfed politicians are still abusing each other.
Unfortunately.
In the face of people dying. And last week there was reported that 11 children died in Marsabit. And if you hear the media, and this communication expert will tell you, when the media says there are 11 dead, it's only what they have seen.
Yeah.
It must be more than that. May God help us at a time like this, that we can start being human at least.
And I think we'll start on that very note as well. We are expecting to get a hold of the SG of NC Party, that is Simon, in a bid, that is if he finds his way here, but he says he should be here. I hope he'll be here on time. All right, so gentlemen, I agree with you that for the better parts of last week but one, I think last week we were here, Barak? No, we were not here last week, but there's a point we spoke.
Yeah.
Yes, but there's a point we spoke, and I think
Yes.
that was one of the things that you were concerned about.
Indeed.
And, you know, the irony of it all is that it's not the first time that we're talking about it.
Yeah.
The irony of it all is that we could be, you know, trying so much so to speak high about this whole thing. But it's what has been playing out. They say it's even worse when it comes to a political season. And I have heard the spokesperson of government here the other day says, you know, so much is being done to make sure that these Kenyans are cushioned. But do you suppose what he says is anything to go by, Barak?
Thank you very much once again, Linda. One of the things that have been happening increasingly in recent times is an upsurge in propaganda. Where people are peddling half-truths, half-facts, and convoluting and twisting them and taking them in whatever trajectory they wish for purposes of scoring political goals. We can be told that the situation is good, that we can look at the tunnel and see some light at the end of it, but there is nothing. Sometimes what is most baffling is that these things come even from the highest office in the land, and they don't come in off-the-cuff remarks. They come even in official written statements that become public records. You can look at the cost of electricity, for example, which was part of His Excellency the President's official speech on Jamhuri Day, where we were promised that within a few days' time the cost of power would go down. And everybody in this country knows that it has since gone even higher. That you can look at this whole narrative about impeachment. The left says this, the right says something else, the center says another thing, the top says one thing. The next day, a certain council of elders comes and disowns that pronouncement. Meanwhile, it has been owned by another quarter within the formation. Cabinet secretary tells us that the cost of fertilizers has dropped drastically when it has actually
gone up,
more than doubled. So you start wondering whether even the institution of government is working. And I think that I can place this confusion at the doorstep of the collapse of the executive. Media sometimes, instead of even telling us about August 9 polls all the time, from the beginning to the end.
But you know that is important, Barack. In defense of us, I'll tell you that it's politics that runs what happens.
If it's politics that runs the country and the narrative, then you have got the wrong end of the stick. The right end of the stick is that government collapsed in this country a few years ago. And we need to be holding candid conversations about this.
That this politics is what is likely to shape that when we vote and vote right.
Yes, indeed, but we need to get granular. We need to get to the heart of the matter. And the heart of the matter is that cabinet has not sat for more than 2 years.
Wow.
When cabinet does not sit for more than 2 years, we must start wondering how the government does its business. Because the Constitution of Kenya says that the executive, that the government will do its business through the cabinet, which will be chaired by His Excellency, the President.
All right, well, we don't even know whether we have a cabinet, I'm sorry to say. Okay, well, at least we know. I think I wouldn't be forgiven to argue that way. Some have exited the stage as well. You know, yes, they have gone to politics. And true to it, I can't remember us, you know, recently reporting anything to do with the sitting of cabinet.
We have not even been told who the acting. Maybe I was absent. I don't know. Maybe
it's not been done.
I was out of the country. I don't know. I have not even heard who has taken over in acting capacity.
Of the ones that have exited.
Of the ones who have exited.
Barack, I don't know whether I am right on this, but I don't know whether we all understand how China operates. Sometimes I'm told they take even forever before they sit down to meet, you know, the leadership and all that. But the country is running. Why is it different with some of us?
The leadership in a country is determined by the laws that they have put in place. For us, we have a government that is defined by the Constitution and the instructions on how it is going to be run. And that's why he's very concerned that if the cabinet doesn't meet, the major decisions that are required in the country cannot happen.
You think if they met, there could be a difference?
If there was a government, if there was a government, then it would work. But he says the government collapsed when the presidency went two ways, because it's not the Constitution recognizes us as an office, not two offices. Once they break, then even the cabinet meeting cannot take place because each person will be looking at your side. But I'd like to address the question you had asked my brother earlier, as to whether you believe that when they say that things will be taken, this government spokesman says that action has been taken. It's a sad thing that as just about to say one of those difficult statements.
Yes.
But the point is, mature people, grown-up people can actually sit in front of televisions lying, because
he
hunger.
What's the point and what it is that is being done? So we cannot.
Hunger requires physical evidence.
Okay. And that is not
and this physical evidence requires that you're planning in the future. Fighting hunger isn't about giving people maize flour and for fortified porridge, whatever.
Long time and short
Fighting
time.
hunger is having a plan that shows what the future is.
Okay.
Fighting hunger requires that you know how many people are struggling and how many people have died. They haven't told us. It's a physical thing. It's not a story. It's not a political statement that in the meeting between the leader, the Kikuyu leader, and the elders, the council of elders, he told them this and that. It's different, because now the person who is supposed to have been addressed comes and says, no, I never knew that. His lieutenant says, no, we discussed it. The council of elders says, what's wrong with you? You guys were not even there. Nothing like that was discussed. That's politics. This other issue is reality. goats, sheep, and whatever, livestock are dying. What are we doing about it? Because it doesn't matter how much maize flour you give the person who is hungry, but if he doesn't have livelihood immediately after that, he'll die for something else. So there has to be a proper plan to be able to tell us. And for information, Lina, the problem is that before one person dies, everyone knows that there is hunger. Not in 2 days, a year before. Like you notice the way the rains have delayed, there's going to be a problem. So you start planning ahead of time. So when you sit here and say that we have a solution to it,
we don't have a solution. And next year, I can look in the crystal ball and I can tell this country that next year is going to be worse. We are going to witness the mother of all famines and hungers in the country.
Barack, why would you argue that way? I mean, you want to be a prophet of doom.
I'm not a prophet of doom or a prophet of anything. It's just a question of looking at what is happening on the landscape and telling the country what is going to happen. Even biblically, there was the youthful Joseph who looked at the factors and told the Pharaoh that there are going to be 7 years of plenty, followed by 7 years of famine, which would be a factor of the complacency emerging out of that 7 years.
What are you telling the
In
electorate?
this country today, people are not able to buy farm inputs. The cost of seed has gone up. The cost of fertilizers from 2,800 shillings to 6,000 shillings. In fact, it's 6,000 shillings plus. It is not possible for farmers to cultivate any meaningful acreage.
That is information that is privy to the government from what the spokesperson says, and they say they are looking at means and ways of addressing this. And Barack, we have been privileged to understand what is happening in the global fraternity. They largely point a finger at that. They say effects of the same are being witnessed globally, and therefore we are not unique. We are not...
They can go and tell that to the birds. The issue is that this is the planting season. The war in Ukraine broke out on the 24th of last month. By that time, all our farm inputs should have been in place, just waiting. The farmers would be having them strategic fertilizers, strategic. Mheshimiwa engineer here is talking about looking forward, about having prepared in advance. You cannot possibly be sitting somewhere in a government office and telling us that because there's a war in Eastern Europe, we are not able to provide fertilizers to the farmers.
But we also agree that there's some effects that would trickle down to us.
Those ones haven't started coming yet.
That would be the future.
That is like, you know, if you go to the gym this morning, don't start looking at yourself in the mirror.
Which we do a lot
and
anyway.
start
You feel like
wondering how you have
lost some
improved.
weight.
The effects of today, if you are consistent, are going to be seen in 2 months' time.
But you also understand that that's not how the global market works.
The effects of the war
will be more
are going to be felt in this country starting from 3 to 4 months from now. And when they come, they're going to bite like you've
That's the
never
reason
been,
why it will be,
like
say it will be worse.
You've never been beaten. President Uhuru can be happy that he's going to have exited the stage.
I wanted to ask you, why the excitement for others to probably get into power? And what are you telling the electorate? Do not go out there and vote, because after all, the government that is coming is not going to be able to address this trouble that lies ahead of us.
The point is, there's a possibility that a new government can address, because they say intelligence is added with more. The newer the person, there's a possibility that they can do different. The issue here is not what is happening. The issue is that there are solutions to these problems. And I'd like to take a historical perspective that if you look at Kenya vis-a-vis the Asian tigers in the 60s and in the 70s, we are almost at the same level. Malaysia, Singapore, Indonesia, whichever country you talk about, we're almost at the same level, and some of them were below us in terms of per capita income. In terms of the poverty levels and all that, they were even worse than we were. Governments came into place that had a futuristic look at things. They were not just politicians, they were leaders. You want to ask me what's the difference? A politician looks only on the next election. That I win 2022 and immediately start thinking, how do I win 2027? A leader looks at getting the opportunity to lead and having a vision that is long term. That's the difference. So that the people that are fighting for election now, we can only hope that they are leaders, not just politicians. Because if they are politicians, they'll do exactly the same thing that the current ones are doing, trying to justify and to explain anything and everything that happens around this country. So there's an opportunity that the new government might start looking in a long-term situation, so that the countries that have fought lack of food in their countries have increased their production. Very simple. How do you increase? Maybe you do irrigation, maybe do dams like the ones that we've been talking about, and have enough water for the farmers to do that. But any government that tries to explain things that don't make sense, then can't have a solution to the problems. The fertilizer issue that Muluka has mentioned started before. If you look at press cuts and all that, you see that farmers started complaining of fertilizer being 6,000 shillings in January. So how can you allocate that to a war that started 24 days after that?
After that.
You can't.
Okay.
Today we are having fuel, we've been buying it at 130, no, before that we were buying at 129. 129. The actual price for fuel at that time was 144 shillings, based on their calculation. Okay? Now the government was subsidizing. And the oil company now is complaining because the government is not giving them back the money, the subsidy money. Why would the government subsidize the fuel? Where were they going to get the money to subsidize, and for what reason? Because they know the reason why the fuel is 129 is because the fuel lands at 62 shillings in Mombasa. And 62 shillings includes the profit for the distributor, includes the profit for the supplier, includes. So the difference between 129 and 62, or 144 and 62, is taxes, in which the fuel levy is 16 shillings per litre. Sorry, is 18 shillings per litre, which means you know the reason why the fuel is expensive. Then you pretend to collect money elsewhere to subsidize it. So I don't know that you are lying to yourself or lying to Kenyans.
Honorable Makali Mulu sits in the budget committee and was telling us that actually that's what government is telling them today, that while fuel is being bought at 135, it should be going for 165. So the government has come into, as well, subsidized this in a way, and so we should actually be celebrating and appreciating the government in this case, they say.
Unless we want to celebrate Robin Hood, the guy who steals from this side and pays you from the other side. The point is this: you got to be honest with your citizen. When did they start subsidizing the fuel? In November. When did the war in Ukraine start? In the month of February. Which means you are giving a reason or an excuse for a situation because you find something to hang on. Even in your personal life, you must never look for red herrings in your life. You know, things to hold on. You must face the problems that you have head on so that you can be able to solve them.
But as well, I agree with you, gentlemen, that maybe the effects of what is happening globally would probably come to us a little bit later. But you've been here long enough to as well agree that in just one day, you know, the world can feel the impact of a negativity that plays out in a certain nation, and therefore there are probabilities that these effects could be, you know, being witnessed at the countries or different countries or the global fraternity at large as it stands.
You know, we live on the fringes of society, of the global community, on the fringes. In fact, when the world speaks about itself, we are in a 1.3 to 1.8% margin. The rest of the world moves on. And that rest of the world begins absorbing the shocks immediately. And unlike ourselves, it has got strategic, expediency plans and measures in place, and it's able to absorb the shocks in the short term to mid-term. And by the time it's getting into the long term, it has sorted itself out. Here in this country, in years gone, we used to also to talk about strategic reserves. Now strategic reserves is an empty formation of words, forgotten completely. Therefore, when the waves of the shocks eventually get to our shores, they are going to be felt. We can only pretend that we will not feel them. We are going to feel them. They are going to get here in the long term. And all these are factors of the reality that the people who have been in government since the retirement of President Mwai Kibaki have not understood what the business of government is about. In the first place, they thought that government was about eating. That is why at a point when the political opposition was questioning some of the very odd things that the Jubilee Alliance at that time government was doing, the year 2014, 2015, President Uhuru Kenyatta stood up at a funeral in Narok and told the political opposition that we are eating meat while you are drooling. He did not say that we are working for Kenyans, that we are building the economy, that we are carrying on with government projects even as you make noise. He said, tunakula nyama mukimeza mate. And therefore, anyone and everyone who is given the opportunity to play a role in government is actually taken there to eat. The government becomes a gravy train. And provided that this country continues to embrace the notion of the culture of the cargo ship, that a ship arrives in your harbor having brought cargo, and that cargo is for eating, we are going to continue going round and round in those circles without the country seeming to move forward, getting overwhelmed with these problems, churning out more youth from high school, more youth from universities, from middle-level colleges, but without any clear indication of how they are supposed to fit in the post-training society. So we are in the process of stockpiling a crisis. An intelligent person who realizes that he or she is in a hole stops digging. The Jubilee government, over the past 9, now coming to 10 years, has completely lost focus. And it is because they never understood what government was about from the very beginning. The first time I heard President Uhuru Kenyatta talking about these things was in 1992, when President Moi appointed him to government, nominated him in 2002, I beg your pardon, 2002. President Moi nominated him and appointed him to government, appointed other people, including Cyrus Jirongo, to government, and William Ruto as an assistant minister. And the political opposition started asking questions: who are these young people that you are appointing into government? What experience do they have? And President Uhuru Kenyatta, at that time a minister, I think he was Minister of Trade or something like that, went before public TV cameras and said, when the father brings sweets and gives his children, then the neighbors who don't have any sweets start complaining. He did not talk about the competence. So the mentality is a consumerist psyche that we have come here to eat. It is a gravy train. The country is a stag.
So what then is it that Alex Mwadhi has some, at least confidence or hope that maybe the next government would attempt to address these problems that we're talking about? I am almost tempted to imagine that it will be the same faces, let alone the culture.
The same mentality, competing for the same opportunities, to do the same things, the same way, with the same results.
So really nothing much to, or maybe we'd say, with Kibaki, who was there also for quite a while and got here, and today we're celebrating some of the gains he's made. Do we look at that angle?
That is where, because I want to remain on the optimistic side. There is a possibility that there can be change. Because when Kibaki came to power, and he was part of a government for many, many years. From 1963, he was part of the government, and we knew he was part of the Moi government for almost 12 years. And when he came, somehow, he had a change of mind. I still have an issue with the fact that whatever program he had was short-term, not very long-term. But the point is, there was a change, and that's why I want to be on the optimistic side. There's a possibility that the people that will be appointed, there's a possibility, because our problem, and I would agree with Barak, is we may point our finger at government, but three fingers always point at us. That the government, those people in government, are a reflection of us. That unless something happens between now and the month of August, that will change our minds, and there is a possibility that can happen. I want to be optimistic. Unless that happens, then we will continue with the same kind of situation, the same kind of grind that will go on and on and on and on and on. But remember that we are having a huge mass of young people that are I will not say educated, but they have gone to school, and they have degrees and all that, and they are unemployed, and they're doing all sorts of odd things. And because of the exposure they have had in their education, sooner or later, they will not be able to sit back. They will not be able to sit back. And those are the young people that might actually cause a real revolution. I don't know whether you, and we were mentioning this with Barak Sotri before we started, about this border business, that we have seen the government come very strongly on them for only a week. What happens is that if you do such a thing to such an organization that is amorphous, and you're not doing anything that is long-term in terms of controlling what they're doing, you embolden them. So the next time, they will do even worse. And it's a time bomb that is coming. Because you say you're talking about registration in 90 days. These fellas have seen Matatu and the SACCOs, and they have seen them registered, and they know they are useless things. Because the government was supposed to control Matatus by having them in SACCOs, so that when somebody messes up, then it's a SACCO that is whatever. But we know there's a company called Fast Forward that goes to Eastlands. We know something called Mweki SACCO. We know they do the things they do on the road. They can do anything and nobody can question them. And you've heard those stories of, raping the Matatus and all that. You think they have ended? The mistreatment? It hasn't ended. But they keep emboldening themselves because the government doesn't take these matters very seriously to be able to stop them. But there is still a hope in the future. Whether it will come after some revolution that might happen sooner or later, but there is still hope.
All right, I don't know whether we arrive for a revolution at all, but let's address the electorate for a moment. And do you suppose we are mature enough, as one would want to argue, that maybe long gone are the days where we politic based on tribe, long gone are the days where it is a question of party affiliation, but it's ideology. It's what it is that the people present to us. However, the fact that they do not have much in terms of giving us practical solutions.
I think we make one step forwards, and we do 3 steps backwards. Okay. And therefore, in a season we can see how much progress we have made in which direction. And I suspect that we are likely to be far behind than where we were when we started. When you look at the number line, which has got plus and minus, when you take 5 and you add on -2, it becomes 3. And you add on -6, yeah, it becomes negative 3. Yeah, so instead of moving forward 3 steps, you have moved backwards 3 steps. In real terms, you can look at what is happening in the political field, and Engineer Alex Mwadhi might be even more competent to talk about this than I am. Why has Kalonzo Musyoka become an issue? When you look at today's press, you see that there is half a page that is dedicated to him, page 8 of the Standard.
Yeah.
Where is Kalonzo as Raila team campaigns? Why has Kalonzo become such a precious item?
He is. The DP yesterday was saying, tell Kalonzo asiangaike sana huko, kuje huko, wasimsumbue sana.
Yes, and at the bottom here, Ruto says, I haven't given up on Wiper leader. Does Kalonzo Musyoka have an electoral card that is different from the one that you hold, from the one that the engineer has and myself and these good ladies and gentlemen who are managing the cameras and the others in the gallery there? He has 1 vote, like you.
You know that Kalonzo does not have 1 vote, Barack.
In practice, yeah?
He has, they say he has now 1 point,
in reality,
to 2 million?
2 million.
So then you have answered the question that you asked me, that it is believed that he's the owner of a kraal of cattle in Ukambani. And that wherever he goes, the cattle will go with him. When you read the Bible, you find a man called Abram, who then becomes Abraham. And when he has differences with his nephew, Lot, he asks Lot, look at this landscape, choose wherever you want to go and go with your livestock, and I will go in another direction. And you find this man going with his livestock. That is how the political class understands the country. And that's how we also tend to behave. That if he says we go left, we go with him. We go right, we go with him. Therefore, we have not made any progress. We have not made any advances. We have not moved forwards. In Western Kenya, where I come from, I come from Kakamega County, in from a village called Emanyudia. It is in Huisero. We have recently been given a satellite political party with Eselis Miu and Wafula Wamunyenyi as the leaders. And it's supposed to be devolution that traps us into that entity, which we can then come with to the table. Wafula Wamunyenyi and Eselis Miu can come and say, we are bringing 1.8 million Luya votes. They haven't consulted me, but they are assuming that I am there and the rest of us are there.
Is it an assumption, really, or is it an assumption when you say that Kalonzo Musyoka enjoys this massive support from Ukambani region, that even the 3 governors cannot quite shake him? That's why Azimio at some point with the 3 governors was salivating and longing to have Kalonzo. And today they are asking, where is he while they're pulling this campaign?
One thing that we cannot argue is the fact that this country has been, the politics has been tribalized. not from yesterday, but I think this was a plan the colonialist had, that as long as you can divide people, then you can rule them. So that people, so that over time, people have struggled to find what's the difference between this man from Huswero and this man from Kiambu. And people have found that there's a difference. Perceptually that there's a difference. Anything else, the fact that if I was born in Kiambu and taken to Kuswero, I'd be a Luya today.
Absolutely.
If this fellow was born in Kuswero and brought to Kiambu, you'd be a Kikuyu. So there's really no fundamental difference. But the politicians or our culturing has made sure that there's always a difference. So that it's been a tribal, what you call a political situation from day one. And people now are struggling because in the past elections, that has been the prime discussion. You could scatter around everything else, you know, manifesto and all that, but you scatter around that. But 5 years ago, a conversation started coming in that was economic. And that's why people are now struggling to really adjust to that new phenomenon of discussing politics without being tribal. But you can't kill something immediately. I think in Kikuyu we say that the family of this thing that has chameleons can never lack that thing at the back. So that it takes time to be able to shave off that. So that's why even this year, even with the economic model discussions being introduced a couple of years ago, people are still struggling the tribal situation. And it's reality, my brother, that in perceptionally in politics, the Ukambani votes are in the hands of
Kalonzo
Musyoka. The votes for Nyanza are in the hands of Raila Odinga. And family, so for that is 100%. I hope you've seen some meme says that a business person was saying that if he called us to go to the streets, I'll drop everything here and run. I'll not even bother whether I lost all the property because he must become king. If you go to Mount Kenya region, there has been a lot of debate around. Uhuru is trying to assert his position as a tribal leader for that group. Even now, I think the conversation in political scenes now is Jubilee now is a Kikuyu party, is a Central Kenya party. Remember, it was a national party just 3-4 years ago. So that fact is real.
It has devolved and given out franchises.
So the point is, whatever conversation we can have here, in the minds of Kenyans, in the mind of the political stalwarts, Kalonzo is still the man to watch in Ukambani. That when he comes in with all the votes. And you remember, this is only happens because in Western Kenya, they have never had this kind of thing. Maybe that's why Muluka doesn't want to admit because they've always been divided. From even 1992, some people went with Matiba, some other people went with Moi. And for whatever reasons. But Kalonzo has been the kingpin in Ukambani. As to whether he remains a kingpin will be seen on the 9th of August, because then at that point you'll see whichever side he goes. Because right now we are not sure. He said he doubted the document they signed at KCC. And the following day he said, no, we read them and they're okay. But you haven't seen, like the newspaper says, you haven't seen him in the campaigns for Azimio, which means there's a possibility that maybe there's a negotiation for him to shift on the other side. So in August, we'll be able to see whether he still holds sway for all the votes in Ukambani. In the past, he has had. Whenever he moved all the votes with him.
Let's wait a minute. Yes, give him 1 or 2 more minutes to put his blocks together properly. What is this one which Luka has not admitted, does not want to admit?
The fact that Kenyan politics are tribalistic, that the discussion on the table has very little to do with development, has very little to do with the way forward, has very little to do with what will the new government do, but what will our people get out of that government. When you talk about our people, you're talking about tribe, you're talking about region. And that's a fact of the situation. And that's why Kalonzo by all means, and you know, you don't say that everybody votes according to his will, but when the majority votes, then they follow him. That's the point that you need to admit that Kalonzo
has been elusive.
Engineer, that is what I have been saying. Perhaps I was a little imperceptible, but that is exactly what I have been saying. That there's this assumption that Kalonzo Musyoka has a kraal. A kraal is that place where cattle sleep.
Yes.
Yeah? A cowshed. And that there are cows there which take the description and the label of Kamba, and that they are owned by Kalonzo Musyoka, and wherever he goes, he can take them with him. And therefore, that his vote is a silver vote.
It's 2 million votes.
It's not like yours or mine.
Thank you.
And that Jubilee Party has been devolved. You know, the Western multinationals, when they came to Africa, they were coming in their totality of operations. But after a while, they found it was very expensive to continue doing that. So they started issuing franchises. That you find marshals have issued a franchise to some local people. You find a certain DT Dobby, you find a certain, even big giants like Coca-Cola, they devolved in that manner. Jubilee Party has devolved. When you go to Western, you find two strands. There's the shadow of Jubilee, but the real one is DAP. Okay, instead of bringing us
is that what you want to say? I had the Secretary General has spoken here and says there is no way DAP is Jubilee. There is no way DAP is a project of the state.
It's called double speaker.
Even though they support Azimio.
They cannot fool me in that regard. There are many things that people can do to me. One of the things they can't do, however, is to play with my intellect. Because it is very clear that DAP is somebody's baby. It has got a sponsor who is a patron.
But isn't it what politics is, Barack? Spin mastering, going down to the people, camouflaging.
I'm not complaining.
Okay.
I'm just saying what is happening.
You can see.
If I go outside there and I find that the sun is shining, and I say the sunshine, I'm not complaining. I'm just stating a fact. If I go out there and I say it is drizzling, I'm not complaining.
How factual that is, I do not know. But at least, you know, the Secretary General has said there's nothing like that.
Oh, he was here.
He was yesterday, as I don't know, early or late as yesterday. Let's take a short break,
I'd just like to remind you that the press said that the president told the elders that the Ruto approached Raila so they could impeach him. A few days after, Raila said no.
I will not speak about it. He said, I will not speak about it.
He said, I'm not aware.
Yes, I'm not aware.
I'm not aware of any of that. That means that we never had that conversation. Then the following day, his lieutenant, and you tell this by the way they behave, his lieutenant, Junaid says, no, that thing happened. The following day, the Council of Elders that were being addressed
are saying.
So a Secretary General sitting here saying that is similar to that story.
So that's where we're headed after all.
Thank you.
After this break.
It does not define them, neither does it limit them.
I want to start creating awareness and empowering people with epilepsy.
See the deaf understand themselves better.
In a world which is arranged with the disabled person in mind, the world is good for everyone.
Catch This Inspiring Stories every Saturday at 7:30 p.m.
Coming up with a business idea is easy. Starting the business and keeping it running is where the hurdle is.
Yes, each month comes with its own challenges, but you just have to keep being aggressive. Don't give up.
But there are those who, even with a number of challenges, have been able to keep their grind running. from the beauty industry to the entertainment industry and even new age marketing. Join me, Violet Njoki, as I take you on a journey of the grind every Monday at 7:30 p.m.
The soil has a story. That is why every week we go in search of different stories from the farm, from fruits, vegetables, and even animals. We talk to different farmers who get to tell us about their produce.
Maziwa ya mbuzi unuka kwa sababu ya hygiene.
If you manage the mango properly, a mindo age tree will give you over 1,000.
As for oranges, they thrive well in dry areas.
Join Sandra Wahito as she brings you these stories on Kilimo Diaries every Sunday at 6:30 p.m.
Welcome to the Men's Conference.
At the conference, we help you understand what it takes to be a modern-day ideal man.
Just because you weren't treated well as a son doesn't mean that you get to be a crappy father.
By how he coexists with his relations and handles himself.
That there's no one-on-one parenting class. There isn't. It's something you just stumble into it and you move along.
It is educative and informative.
Here, it's hot, it's blunt, it's definitely manly, and oh, it is fun.
Join us every Wednesday at 10 p.m. at the Men's Conference, where men become alpha males.
It all started from somewhere. Excavation of the foundation. Enclosing your home. Finishing touches and interior designs. At The Realtor, we get to delve into matters construction and real estate ownership every Tuesday at 7:30 p.m. It does not define them, neither does it limit them.
I want to start creating awareness and empowering people with epilepsy.
See the deaf understand themselves better.
In a world which is arranged with the disabled person in mind, the world is good for everyone.
Catch this inspiring stories every Saturday at 7:30 p.m.
Coming up with a business idea is easy. Starting the business and keeping it running is where the hurdle is.
Yes, each month comes with its own challenges, but you just have to keep being aggressive. Don't give up.
But there are those who, even with a number of challenges, have been able to keep their grind running. From the beauty industry to the entertainment industry and even new age marketing. Join me, Violet Njoki, as I take you on a journey of the grind every Monday at 7:30 p.m.
The soil has a story. That is why every week we go in search of different stories from the farm, from fruits, vegetables, and even animals. We talk to different farmers who get to tell us about.
And first, I don't like this headline.
The advocate.
Yeah, when I'm training my students in mass communications, I tell them to avoid this kind of warlike idiom because they are fanning up this thing almost as if they have come from mass, and that when it is over, they will go to mass and leave us here having our challenges. There are better ways of writing headlines and not this kind. It looks like I'll have to go back to the newsroom to train those who have been trained by those I trained. And I
What would you rather they have?
And I hope they are listening.
What would they have written instead? A story for another day.
Yeah, we come back to that. A story for another session. Yeah. The internal logic is not there because Junaid Mohammed has, in terms of timelines, placed these to the period just before the 2017 presidential election. And it is the one election where we saw William Ruto going out to campaign very vigorously for Uhuru Kenyatta. In fact, looking at it, and I was on the other side, because within that period, I became the Secretary General of ANC, not the one you are waiting for. Who
this
has
one, forget about him. This one,
the one who has let you down.
Him and tell him, SG, SG,
and who
does that a lot. I don't know why.
And we were watching these things, and William Ruto put his heart, his spirit, his soul, his everything in the campaign. And when the Supreme Court nullified that election, President Uhuru Kenyatta looked like he was despairing when he was going around the country, Kikombasha, Orimoyo, Bama Market, and being very unhappy and looking a little under the weather, a little dissipated. It was William Ruto who threw everything into it. Yeah, into it. And you cannot convince me that this is the person who was talking about impeachment. Why would you want to impeach him even a few days to the general election? And if at that point there would have been any conversation, which I think there wasn't, between Ruto and Raila, it would have been something like, let us team up now for this coming election. And I'm aware that Raila would have warmed up to that, because I am aware, and I speak now on authority, that in 2013, Raila Odinga was doing everything that he could to win back William Ruto so that they could go to that election together. But he went with Uhuru Kenyatta. He delivered that presidency. And let's be fair to the man. I think there are ways in which you can fight a man, especially in a society that has got intelligent people, and come and place them before them something intelligent. We are not the idiotic animals in George Orwell's Animal Farm, whom Comrade Squealer can come to and squeal anything that he says, oh, Snowball did this, oh, Snowball did that, oh, Snowball told us to bring down the windmill, Snowball told us, the hens say, to lay eggs from a place where they drop down, but we refused. Snowball is the one who is making the weather to dry, and therefore the famine that we are experiencing. We are not that. Let them come up with some intelligent propaganda that gives us the benefit of the doubt.
You know, this is Baba's foot soldier, and a big one for that matter. And it would be instrumental for them to secure Baba a win in this case. Why would they speak of this?
At this time of
before we come to Barack.
Of a political dispensation, these are point where we are doing elections. And unfortunately for us, elections have been a moment where you create propaganda about the other person, and once you prepare propaganda against the other person, then you use that as a basis to justify your position.
This would as well throw his boss under the bus.
There is nothing for politicians that is good as being in the limelight.
Okay.
Irrespective.
Even for the wrong way.
Even from the wrong way. I think his Goebbels told us that if you tell a lie big enough and keep repeating it, people will believe it, as long as the people that are telling a lie are protected by the state. against any political, economic situations. And the only way, if you remember that the last couple of years, the headlines in every newspaper has been William Ruto, William Ruto, William Ruto this, William Ruto that. And that had meant that you had to remove Baba from that, because in the past, every newspaper title headline would be 80% would be Raila this, Raila that, opposition this, ODM that, and all that. So this is an opportunity for them to remain in the limelight, because they think that a majority of Kenyans are fools in that they will not be able to relate the issues that have been discussed previously. As this is being done for information, yesterday the Council of Elders that was supposed to have been told the same thing denied it. But the media chose to, remember, the people who are supposed to have been addressed and told those things, said those things were never mentioned.
That was the explanation.
Okay? And they give an explanation. Okay? Now, this guy goes to media to say that they were told. He wasn't there. So which means that, that he's just doing this to be on the limelight, to be on the front page, to be able to be seen, as opposed to any other story taking the headline. Because if this story was not with the media, the story on the headline would have been Council of Elders. What do they use? Maybe cool the temperatures or whatever it is.
Right.
But this is the moment where propaganda will be done. This is the moment where people will speak ill of others so that they can look to be good, so that you can vote for them because they look good. And this is a very bad concept, that if Muluka is bad, then I'm good. As opposed to I telling people why I think I'm good enough for what I'm being told. Yeah.
Whether such was the plan or not, Barack, it is politics. Is it necessary really for us to look at it as a factor that would hugely maybe somehow destabilize or maybe change the matrix of 2022 politics or the August 9 election?
It probably will not vary the election that much. I think 4 months to the elections, most people know who they are going to vote for. There is, however, a corridor there in the middle of people who don't know who they are going to vote for, or even if they want to vote in the first place.
The undecided ones.
The undecided ones. Yeah. And those are the people whom these politicians should be trying to speak to. Unfortunately for them, they forget something very important. The people who are undecided about how they should vote or who they should vote for are people who are possessed of critical minds, are people who are looking for sense. The ones who have already decided, most are driven by emotion and raw passion. And they have already made those closed eyes decisions. It doesn't matter what you come up to say about Raila Odinga, they have decided they are going to vote for him. And there are those who have decided they are going to vote for William Ruto. You are now trying to appeal to the intelligent mind. So when you come and position hogwash propaganda before those intelligent people, you are losing them. They are trying to see what kind of difference. They are the people who think about the country, who think about their children, who think about education, about health, who think about infrastructure. That is the constituency you are talking to. In fact, these rounds that they are doing across the country, these barnstorming and stamping all over the place, it's not adding them anything much. And everywhere they go, they are recycling the same message. When you watch the news, and I've been watching you this morning, I've watched other channels, the message is always the same. Sini huyu huyu. the one ule anafanyanga hivi, the one ule anafanyanga, huyu anadu hivi.
Ours is to report what is there.
Yes.
So if that is what we are treated to, then we are left with no choice but
so you agree with me
that it could be true.
And it's boring. I can predict what the news footage is going to be this.
Maybe it's because you've been in this room
this evening.
Before, so.
It's going to be something about BBI, and people will be celebrating on both sides of the political divide, and they'll be saying the same things that we have been hearing. Intelligent people don't want that, and those are the undecided voters. They want you to come and place before them something intelligent. The masses that you talk about, you have already finished with them. So maybe Odinga is right here. I've seen somewhere they are saying that he has now changed his strategy in parts of the country. He's going to conduct town hall meetings. The critical thing is going to be who is his audience in those town hall meetings. Are they thinkers? Are they these people who are undecided? Or it is the same Paris mob? You know about the Paris mob, the one which was causing trouble, and the Queen saw them in the streets and said, why are those people protesting? And she was told, oh, they don't have food. They don't have food. They don't have bread. And she said, if they don't have bread, why can't they eat cake? If it is that same crowd that they are sitting there waiting for handouts, you are wasting your time.
Fair enough. And you know, we do not wait until evening for your arguments or, you know, your line of thought to be justified. We do it right now. So in about 10 minutes before we close, BBI. BBI, Alex Mwathi. I know you are not for the BBI. You've never been, but here we are today. From the appellate to the apex, we're eagerly waiting.
Yeah, I saw a meme that says that born once, died twice, resurrected once. And those are people that are hoping that the Supreme Court will give a judgment that gives full life, I must say full life to BPI. The issue is that there are about 14 prayers that had been prayed for, that the two lower courts granted the people that are prayed for those issues. So the Supreme Court, of course, is meant to address them also. Either way, when the reason why you go to the higher court is in the hope that that court will interpret the submissions different from the previous court that you came. And that's why someone is given that. So there are two schools of thought. Number one, the people that seem to support the government side, the Azimio side, seems to be have been very celebratory about this judgment announcement. And the question has always been whether they know something that we don't know. The other side of government, because this year we have a very interesting election ballot, because it's the government against government.
Government, yes.
It's no longer government against opposition, because it's a presidency, President Uhuru against Deputy President Ruto in this election. And anybody else is just red herring. Now, so that side now are saying, what are you celebrating about? What are you celebrating about? If these things come, it is for this country and we'll all benefit out of it, which is true. Because people are saying that the deputy president was against the constitution in 2010, yet he's benefiting from that. Because we seem to forget very quickly that he had issues that he had a point with. I myself was against the constitution because of one or two items, not the whole document. So even in this BBI, the fact that I'm against it is not the whole document. There are things inside that I think, oh, that makes sense, but does not require referendum. So you're putting the big issue, the issue that you want, and covering up the issues that are irrelevant. Good for the country, things that can be done even today can be changed today. Out of the 74 items in that constitutional change thing, 72 could be done today in Parliament, and they're useful for this country. But there are two that are self-serving, and those are the ones that you cover up. So
Yes.
now the Supreme Court makes a ruling today, and I would say that, my statement would be that let's wait for it and see which direction it goes, so that we can know whichever happens. Now, remember, ABC is already preparing for the elections. And a lot of people are saying that now, if they rule for BBI, then we can postpone election. I do not know which law they are reading.
We can't.
I don't know which laws they are reading, because I've seen even members of parliament on social media commenting to that effect. And I'm thinking, what are you talking about? We are ruled by the laws of Kenya, and there's no law that says that now because you have a referendum to do, then postpone election. It doesn't work like that.
Others say you can add in their 7th ballot paper.
You
Others
can't.
Say
You cannot.
You can't.
There is a specific constitutional process that must be followed.
The referendum questions
Because
and all this,
they would have to go back to where they were when the process was told by the lower court, by the High Court. They have to get where they were at that moment, post the successful pushing of this thing through the county assemblies. After that, that's where and I think it also went through Parliament, and therefore they start from there.
Okay.
Yeah.
And taking note that this Parliament has got only 4 months left. It would be a process that would run parallel to the electoral process, and it would probably collapse somewhere like the river Uasonyiro. It would end up in the Lorian swamp.
Okay.
Yeah, that we would not know where it went. But the Supreme Court has got its assignment, which it has got to discharge, irrespective of considerations that we are now in the electoral season. The calendar is already in motion. By mid next month begins tomorrow, Fool's Day. After tomorrow, Fool's Day, yeah. By the 22nd, this process the primaries should be closed.
Yeah.
From there, we move on to the presidential nominations, which by about the 15th of May should be done. And we get into the proper now official election campaign season. There is absolutely no way that the BBI process is going to stall that. However, BBI is going to be good cannon fodder for both Azimio and Kenya Kwanza, regardless of which way it goes.
Okay.
If they come and say that we agree with the lower courts, Kenya Kwanza will be saying, you see, we were always right, and they will use it. Azimio will say, these are bad people, they have hijacked the judiciary, we want to bring you more of this and that and that.
But they have refused.
Okay?
Yeah.
So whichever way it goes. And if it goes through, then Kenya Kwanza will be telling Kenyans, you see, they want to overload you. Already things are bad. Already you are paying so much for your fuel. Already this is happening to fertilizers. Already, then they say, now Uhuru Kenyatta wants to come back as this and that. And so whichever way it goes, it's cannon fodder for both sides.
For both sides, yeah.
And as Alia mentioned, this will be streamed live right here on TV 47. So be on the loop so we all get to know how this comes to, probably direct the path of politics in future. Gentlemen, thank you so much for creating time this morning. Barack Muluka, strategic communications expert. It was good having you. We also have Engineer Alex Mwathi once again. Engineer, thank you so much for speaking to us. Engineer Mwathi is a governance expert. Unfortunately, Simon Nikuru could not make it here, but it's all good. It's been a candid discussion and pretty much favorable to what is happening right here in the country. It's for you to pick what is helpful for you and make that crucial decision. Remember, it is your democratic right to make sure that you're part and parcel of the politics of the day and be part of making that history. So we close this conversation at this point. We're crossing over to a different one on matters fashion in relation to that goodwill of pushing the efforts of making the girl child better after this break.
It does not define them, neither does it limit them.
I want to start creating awareness and empowering people with epilepsy.
See the deaf understand themselves better.
In a world which is arranged with the disabled person in mind, the world is good for everyone.
Catch this inspiring stories every Saturday at 7:30 p.m.
Coming up with a business idea is easy. Starting the business and keeping it running is where the hurdle is.
Yes, each month comes with its own challenges, but you just have to keep being aggressive. Don't give up.
But there are those who, even with a number of challenges, have been able to keep their grind running. From the beauty industry to the entertainment industry and even new age marketing. Join me, Violet Njoki, as I take you on a journey of the grind every Monday at 7:30 p.m.
The soil has a story. That is why every week we go in search of different stories from the farm, from fruits, vegetables, and even animals. We talk to different farmers who get to tell us about their produce.
Maziwa ya mbuzi unuka kwa sababu ya hygiene.
If you manage the mango properly, a mindo age tree will give you over 1,000.
As for oranges, they thrive well in dry areas.
Join Sandra Wahito as she brings you these stories on Kidlimo Diaries every Sunday at 6:30 p.m.
Welcome to the Men's Conference.
At the conference, we help you understand what it takes to be a modern-day ideal man.
Just because you weren't treated well as a son doesn't mean that you get to be a crappy father.
By how he coexists with his relations and handles himself.
That there's no one-on-one parenting class. There isn't. It's something you just stumble into it and you move along.
It is educative and informative.
Here, it's hot, it's blunt, it's definitely manly, and oh, it is fun.
Join us every Wednesday at 10 p.m. at the Men's Conference where men become alpha males.
It all started from somewhere. Excavation of the foundation. Enclosing your home. Finishing touches and interior designs. At The Realtor, we get to delve into matters construction and real estate ownership every Tuesday at 7:30 p.m. It does not define them, neither does it limit them.
I want to start creating awareness and empowering people with epilepsy.
See the deaf understand themselves better.
In a world which is arranged with the disabled person in mind, the world is good for everyone.
Catch this inspiring stories every Saturday at 7:30 p.m.
Coming up with a business idea is easy. Starting the business and keeping it running is where the hurdle is.
Yes, each month comes with its own challenges, but you just have to keep being aggressive. Don't give up.
But there are those who, even with a number of challenges, have been able to keep their grind running. from the beauty industry to the entertainment industry and even new age marketing. Join me, Violet Njoki, as I take you on a journey of the grind every Monday at 7:30 p.m.
The soil has a story. That is why every week we go in search of different stories from the farm, from fruits, vegetables, and even animals. We talk to different farmers who get to tell us about their produce.
Maziwa ya mbuzi unuka kwa sababu ya hygiene.
If you manage the mango properly, a mindo age tree will give you over 1,000.
As for oranges, they thrive well in dry areas.
Join Sandra Wahito as she brings you these stories on Kidleo Diaries every Sunday at 6:30 p.m.
Welcome to the Men's Conference.
At the conference, we help you understand what it takes to be a modern-day ideal man.
Just because you weren't treated well as a son doesn't mean that you get to be a crappy father.
By how he coexists with his relations and handles himself.
That there's no one-on-one parenting class. There isn't. It's something you just stumble into it and you move along.
It is educative and informative.
Here, it's hot, it's blunt, it's definitely manly, and oh, it is fun.
Join us every Wednesday at 10 p.m. at the Men's Conference where men become alpha males.
It all started from somewhere. Excavation of the foundation. Enclosing your home. Finishing touches and interior designs. At The Realtor, we get to delve into matters construction and real estate ownership every Tuesday at 7:30 p.m. It does not define them, neither does it limit them.
I want to start creating awareness and empowering people with epilepsy.
See the deaf understand themselves better.
In a world which is arranged with the disabled person in mind, the world is good for everyone.
Catch these inspiring stories every Saturday at 7:30 p.m.
Coming up with a business idea is easy. Starting the business and keeping it running is where the hurdle is.
Yes, each month comes with its own challenges, but you just have to keep being aggressive. Don't give up.
But there are those who, even with a number of challenges, have been able to keep their grind running. From the beauty industry to the entertainment industry and even new age marketing. Join me, Violet Njoki, as I take you on a journey of the grind every Monday at 7:30 p.m.
The soil has a story. That is why every week we go in search of different stories from the farm, from fruits, vegetables, and even animals. We talk to different farmers who get to tell us about their produce.
Maziwa ya mbuzi unuka kwa sababu ya hygiene.
If you manage the mango properly, a mindo age tree will give you over 1,000.
As for oranges, they thrive well in dry areas.
Join Sandra Wahito as she brings you these stories